The Indianapolis Colts are in dire need of a tight end this draft class, and luckily they showed out today at the 2025 Senior Bowl Day 1 practice. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you all for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Zach Hicks, your favorite film nerd over at horseshoehuddle.com. And as always, our boots on the ground, Jake Arthur, is here as well. And he is actually boots on the ground right now. He's boots down in Mobile, Alabama for the 2025 Reese's Senior Bowl. He's down there covering the practices, the press conferences, doing the interviews with the players, doing it all like we expect from our boots on the ground, our Crocs on the ground, Jake Arthur. So today for our show, we're gonna break down day one of the Senior Bowl practice. We're gonna talk about the defenders that shined, the offensive players that shined. But first, we're going to talk about guys who really fit the Colts, because that's really what Jake is down there to do. You know, we want to scout everybody, but we're trying to find guys who fit the Colts. So Jake, first off, Merry Draftmas. This is the best time of the year. Draft season is better than any other time. It's better than even the regular season. We love draft season. Who were some guys down there on the first day of practice, though, that really popped for you and you were like, you know what? Put a Colts jersey on them right now. We already got like 5 Colts coaches down there. Let's already get them fitted for the Colts jersey and get them going.
Yeah, so the Colts kind of need to go best player available this year. Like kind of everyone is on the table. But some main position groups that I thought stood out today, tight ends for me stole the show. And I think it stood out so much to me because I was pretty disappointed in last year's group. And obviously they did not go out and address the position last year, but everybody on earth who pays attention to the Colts knows they need to this year. So guys like Miami's Elijah Arroyo was great today. Did very well in the one-on-ones, had even a couple deep downfield routes that he won. Oregon's Terrence Ferguson, same thing with him. Now, these are guys who have more of they're not necessarily the tweener types. Like they have adequate profiles to be able to block and catch. So if you're the Colts and you're drafting a tight end, hopefully it's not such a niche one that you can only have out there for 25 snaps a game, and Harold Fannin is the guy that everyone's got their eyes on. He was fine as well. But to my pleasant surprise, a couple guys shined even brighter than he did today. So the tight ends performing well was big. The Colts need everything on defense, whether it's depth, new starters in certain spots. The defense was great. Defensive linemen were awesome. Virginia Tech defensive tackle Aeneas Peebles blew up a couple run plays on the first 2 plays of 11 on 11s on the national practice. Omar Norman Lott, Tim Smith, Walter Nolan. There was a bunch of defensive linemen that stole the show and just really wreaked havoc on the run game on both teams.
Yeah, awesome. And we love hearing about defensive tackles. Honestly, the most Chris Ballard thing would be drafting a defensive tackle round 1, shocking everyone.
He has a good excuse to do it this year. I'm okay with it.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see. There has to be a big impact guy, and then maybe we can get. I have heard that Walter Nolan, though, from Ole Miss, has been getting some first-round buzz. 15 would probably be a little too early for him, and honestly, not the best allocation of resources with what the Colts need. But Walter Nolan is a really good player there, obviously. Going back to tight ends, though, I think it's really interesting with this draft class where people kind of get lost in all the buzz of the top guys. I mean, gosh, we have the Tyler Warren to Indy buzz that's going crazy right now. Every mock draft has Tyler Warren to the Colts at their first-round pick. Obviously, Fannin had a fantastic year last year, one of the best tight end seasons we've seen in college football. And then even a guy like Loveland from Michigan is another high-profile name. But I think those high-profile names at tight end have been blocking out the fact that it's a pretty good tight end class. Like, outside of those 3 guys, like you mentioned, Arroyo's right there. I've seen a lot of top 100 buzz for him, a guy that can move and block at the same time. Really good player. Another player, like you mentioned, Terrence Ferguson, like this is a good tight end class, which is good for the Colts because they desperately need one. Like they might need two, they might need three in this draft. I mean,
Yeah.
outside of Drew Ogletree, the Colts don't look like they have any like long-term tight ends on the roster. So maybe a guy like Arroyo in like round 3, for instance, or round 4, even. I mean, heaven forbid he drops that far. You could get a good, solid player to go along with maybe a guy you take in round 1, maybe a free agent you sign. So it's a good tight end class, and I'm glad that that's kind of lining up with what the Colts need, because I think we can all agree that tight end is one of, if not the biggest need on this roster this offseason.
Yeah, for sure. You look at last year, and it was basically Brock Bowers or bust.
Yeah.
You know, Brock Bowers and Jatavian Sanders, like for me, the class dropped off a cliff after those two guys. You could, talk yourself into a Ben Sinnott. A lot of people are like Theo Johnson is super athletic, but overall, it was kind of a 2-horse race. This year, if you lose out on Tyler Warren, it sucks, but it's not the end of the world, because I'm already seeing some mocks with him in the top 10. Like Daniel Jeremiah had him in the top 10. I said, well, there it is. He's going to get sniped in front of the Colts just like Bowers was. So if they lose out on Tyler Warren, there are guys out there who, again, aren't just pass catchers either, because I think it's going to need to be super important for these guys to be able to stay on the field for X amount of time. They cannot just be niche tight ends. Will Mallory, for example, a lot of potential as a pass catcher, but the reason he's not on the field very much is because his utility is limited. So it's been a good showing from tight ends so far. And these are guys who already had good tape and are highly rated prospects. They're not just randomly showing out. So they're just reaffirming what we already kind of thought about them. But another couple guys to look at, the Colts don't really have much excuse not to go out and get complimentary running backs for Jonathan Taylor either. There are plenty of pass catchers in this one, third down backs. Marcus Yarns from Delaware looked really good today. Very much a Tyler Goodson type. You look at like Brashad from SMU. Like there are guys out there who can stay on the field for 3 downs or just be your athletic pass catcher, because like they have to be able to do something after the catch as well. Yeah. And so again, running back is super, super deep this year. Jim Nagy last night said, now he's always very rosy about everyone who comes through there, but someone asked him a question last night that was like, I heard somewhere there could be as many as 30 running backs with draftable grades. And he said, that's actually about what we came out to as well. Yeah. So you can normally find running backs in any round, but especially this year, there's zero excuse for the Colts not to find one. And there's plenty of good ones here in Mobile.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, just to speak to the depth of the class, I mean, I feel like I was pretty prepared on running back coming into the week, and then you throw out a Delaware kid I haven't heard of. So there we go. Yeah. That's just speaking really to the depth of running back in this class. And again, the Colts need a running back. You also have 2 linebackers here, Jake. Before we get out of this first segment, let's hit on these two linebackers, because we certainly need a linebacker in this draft as well. We have a lot of needs, I think, but linebacker feels like a pretty hefty one as well.
Nope. The pride of Indiana, Notre Dame linebacker Jack Kaiser was my most impressive linebacker of the day. Just moved really fluidly, caught the ball well in positional drills, moved around and mirrored the ball very well in the box out there during 11-on-11s. He's kind of known as a gamer. Like, I don't think he's really expected to test out of the roof or anything, but linebacker always has these guys that are just made to play football. And I think it would be a shame for the Colts to miss out on a homegrown guy from Indiana, very extremely rural, like single A football, Indiana, Notre Dame, been there a million years. Now he's at the Senior Bowl in front of them. He'd be a great get. I got a lot of Oregon flavor today too. Jeffrey Bassa was impressive. And then Demetrius Knight is a guy who's had my eye for a little bit as well. But it's been a good showing from the linebackers. Again, it's a great year for the Colts to really need linebacker help. They have every excuse in the world to keep that will linebacker spot open heading into the draft. Because if you can't find a linebacker in this class, I don't know what to tell you. Luckily for Ballard, he's usually pretty good at finding linebackers.
That's true. We will give him that for sure. It's been a tough off season for him on this show, but we will give him that credit, I guess, right there. But coming up, guys, we're going to talk about the offense exclusively. Who shined on offense? What did the quarterbacks do? Did Jake fall in love with a 150-pound wide receiver today? We will talk about it all coming up in just a second. But first, Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the play unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you could place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. All right, Locked On Colts every day as we're back talking exclusively about the offense, and I'm not going to make Jake talk about offensive line first. I'll save that for when I get to talk because I love me some offensive linemen. But of course, Jake wants to start with the quarterbacks. I mean, look, the Colts might go quarterback in this draft class. You never know with
Some point.
Some of the issues they had at quarterback last season. And while I don't think this is the strongest group that's ever been down at Mobile, I mean, heck, one of the first years I ever went there, I got to see Josh Allen and Baker Mayfield down there, and I think Lamar Jackson was there too. It's not to that degree this season, but I do think there are some adequate mid-round guys, guys like Dylan Gabriel, Jalen Milroe. Who stood out for you today, both either good or bad, Jake, at quarterback?
Yeah, my quarterback for the day was Dylan Gabriel. He pretty much just checked every box we thought about him, but these quarterbacks on day one, it's very common for them to not look very sharp. They're adjusting to new pass catchers. They got to get their timing and rhythm down with these guys, learn where they want their passes thrown. But Gabriel was really good, especially throwing over the middle of the field. Obviously, arm strength is not his calling card. And while some downfield throws did maybe, look a little floaty, his throws on balls over the middle of the field were really good. I think for the national team, he had the highest ball speed of the day as well.
Like 75 miles is what I saw. Like,
yeah, he was ripping.
That has to be broken. There's no way. 75 miles per hour. There's no chance.
That has to be off, I'm sure. But like, it looked good when he was throwing over the middle of the field. And I want to preface this by saying it's only a coincidence that they're both left-handed. I hate that they're both left-handed because everything I see about them doesn't have anything to do with being left-handed. But Gabriel does remind me a little bit of Diet Tua Tagovailoa coming out of Alabama. The arm strength isn't great. Like, they're not known for being incredibly mobile or like throwing downfield a bunch, but they are just killers over the middle of the field. They're very accurate. That's where their arm strength and velocity comes into play, is fitting into tight windows and things like that. Very, very precise. The timing is good. So Gabriel does remind me a little bit of that. Probably the type of player that could be like a really safe backup, or under the right tutelage could maybe be a starter in the NFL if he goes into the right situation. But that's a guy who I think would be a very safe backup pick with maybe a little higher upside. Jalen Milroe, that's a guy who, opinions about him are all over the board. He's kind of like a more experienced Anthony Richardson in terms of some strengths and weaknesses. Not the most accurate guy. He sailed a lot of stuff today, but he's super accurate. I was really impressed by what he had to say yesterday when he was introduced to media. It definitely seems like a guy who really loves the process and loves all the behind the scenes work and the preparation. So that part of it's good. He's always working on himself. That's great. It doesn't always turn into positive results, but he's trying. So that's certainly a guy you could maybe take a shot on to be a backup in the middle rounds. I mean, probably like third round would probably be maybe a little rich, but if he's still there, by the middle section, I think that's probably okay. The Canadian quarterback, Taylor Elgersma. So this guy's pretty interesting. I'll be honest. From Canada, that's a big unknown. I was hoping he would have like elite aura and have like insane drip like Jackson Dart or something. But no, he has the unexciting white pocket passer aesthetic. Tall, rigid wristbands, no fluff. But that dude can rip it. I tell you, his arm strength is for real. He's the type of guy that, thrown to the tight end up the seam or something, it's going to be a heater. So small school guy, obviously from Canada, he's going to be a huge question mark. I got to see more of him, but the dude can sure rip the ball.
Nice. Sounds like Tyson Bagent, like 2 years ago when Bagent went there out of Shepherd. I think that was a pretty good find by the Senior Bowl, and Bagent's been a pretty good backup the last couple of years. One more thing I want to say about Dylan Gabriel. You compare him to Tua. I'm pretty sure he's older than Tua. I can't confirm that right now.
At this point right now,
look,
bro.
Dylan Gabriel's been in college since I was in high school, so I can't confirm that, but I'm pretty sure. I mean, he won a national championship with UCF, I guess, as a third place team. But jokes
he's
aside,
for real been like a 5 or 6 year starter.
Yeah.
I was putting together his profile the other day. I was like, oh my God, he has been starting forever. Not just been in college, he's been starting.
Yeah, he's been starting in college as long as my memory goes back in time. Like it's been a long time. And jokes aside, because that's all I can really add right now because I'm not down there in Mobile. Wide receivers, they were on the field today too. I know the Colts necessarily aren't looking for wide receiver because they have their top 4 pretty solidified. But maybe someone catches their eye and can be a grab on like day 3. Who were some wide receivers that caught your eye today, Jake?
Yeah, so Jalen Lane from Virginia Tech had a nice play. Oregon wide receiver Tez Johnson. If you're looking, he's a small guy like a Josh Downs, but he's more of the field stretcher like a Tank Dell type. Now, he was winning his one-on-ones today. He was getting separation and beating guys, but the ball was just overthrown and the connection wasn't there with the quarterback.
He's like 5'6", 150. Of course the ball is going to be overthrown. I mean, come
on.
Well,
he's doing his part. It's not that it was too high. It was just too far in front of him. But I mean, that guy was winning his routes. Iowa State receiver Jaden Higgins had some really a couple nice reps. It was routes versus air, but he had a really acrobatic catch along the sidelines. That was pretty nice. Arkansas wide receiver Isaac Taslaw took the top off of the defense a couple times, won some downfield battles. And then TCU wide receiver Jack Beck. I heard, everyone is looking for the next Puka Nacua since a few years ago. And I heard someone say, if there's going to be one, it could be him. The mid-round receiver who's not exciting but comes out and does everything right. And he did his part today. He made a couple really impressive catches. He seems like a guy who's going to run really good routes and probably not drop much at all. Always going to be in the right spot. So good start for Jack Beck.
Yeah, I mean, hey, there was a guy last year that was the next Puka Nacua in terms
McCaffrey.
of what people said. Well, there was McCaffrey, but there was Jalen Coker as well. A lot of people said last year, and Coker had a good rookie season for an undrafted free agent. So even if he's not as good as Puka Nacua, because nobody is at this, I mean, Puka's a top 5 receiver in football. They could still be a pretty good NFL wide receiver. Some offensive line notes, because I was able to at least watch a couple of the national team one-on-one reps. 2 of my highest rated offensive linemen going into the event this year, Gray Zabel, North Dakota State, because of course North Dakota State just churns out all these offensive linemen. Gray Zabel playing center, playing guard, playing tackle today. I personally have him graded as an interior offensive lineman, but big, strong, mobile player. I think he can fit anywhere. I think he's going to be a top 50 pick. Really good guard prospect. And look, if the Colts do move on from Will Fries and want to go with a guard early, Zabel could be a really good, interesting option there. I know not the sexy pick, but Gray Zabel would be a fun one. And then offensive tackle Josh Connerly Jr. out of Oregon, another one of my higher rated players at the position in this draft. I think he's like my OT 4 right now. Could be a second round pick as well. Big, strong, long guy that just locks it down in pass pro. I thought he had a really good day today as well. So Zabel and Connerly were my two standouts on the offensive line from what I saw. Hopefully I can get more film and break those down a little bit more for you guys going forward. But really fun, active day on offense there. And then coming up, Jake's going to walk us through the defenders that stood out, some corners, some more defensive linemen. It was a big defensive lineman day. We're going to go through it all here in just a second. But first, as a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means it's time to hire. You need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. You could post your job. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip as well. Add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Locked On Colts Everydayers, we're back talking about defenders that stood out today as well. Again, Jake was there at practice for Senior Bowl day 1. We talked about the offense. We talked about players that fit the Colts. Jake, who stood out to you on defense, particularly in the defensive backfield? Because as we've been talking about with Lou Anarumo a lot these past couple weeks, the Colts need a lot more help on the defensive backfield. Who are some DBs that stood out for you?
Yeah, so unfortunately, the safety group is not going to have the star power it maybe would have. Xavier Watts coming off the national championship game, was supposed to come here, but is not going to participate. Obviously, that's very understandable. From cornerback, you got Azariah Thomas from Florida State. Had a few nice plays. Got burned by Tez Johnson a couple times, so some give and take for him. But he had at least one really good pass breakup downfield. The corner from Louisville did as well. Of course, I can't think of his name right now. So those guys had some nice plays in the secondary in like legitimate competitive scenarios. So that was good. Billy Bowman from Oklahoma got interception off of Jalen Milroe late in practice. Bowman's got some that ball skills and stuff's not really a question for him. It's more so missed tackles and stuff. So he's not really going to be able to answer that question other than proving he can take good angles and such in the game. But that right there is probably going to disqualify him from being on the Colts.
We can't have more guys who can't tackle in Indy.
If you have more than 5 missed tackles on the season, it's a no thank you for me, dog. Let's see. So I mentioned all the defensive linemen, but they really just stole the show. Bilal Cohn was a good one from Western Michigan, the cornerback today. So there were some decent cornerback performances. I'm still just really ready to fall in love with a safety though, because last year there was a couple safeties there that I fell in love with, and the Colts never draft the safeties that I like. And you know what? They turned out to be pretty good. Evan Williams and Javon Bullard. They both had decent weeks down here. And I think they both went to the Packers. And what do you know? Good rookie seasons, but not for the Colts.
Was Bullock down there last year from USC?
Yeah, USC.
The Texans drafted?
Caleb Bullock. Yeah. I feel like he was.
He had a really strong rookie season. The Colts actually really liked him from what I remember hearing, but they actually wanted
not enough to draft him.
Well, they wanted to move him to corner, I remember. But they had to get Bornelli and Gonsalves. They felt like they needed those two guys, which can't blame them for those two picks. They seem like good picks right there. But Kalen Bullock, they did really, really like last year as well as a safety. So hopefully there is a safety down there that can fall in love with. Any other players stand out to you on defense before I rattle off a couple that I saw in the one-on-ones?
Yeah, so you got to watch more of the one-on-ones through the NFL Network stuff, but just through the 11-on-11s. Again, I'll reiterate some of these defensive linemen that had big performances. Jaw Joyner from Minnesota, he had a nice sack. But the interior defenders really set the tone against the run. Really, really good. Again, Aeneas Peebles, big performance. Omar Norman Lott from Tennessee and Tim Smith from Alabama on back-to-back plays blew up a couple of runs. Walter Nolan is probably going to wind up being one of my guys from the draft, and I could hear his coaches shouting him out after plays for positive reinforcement. So really big performance from him as well. And then I'm looking. I think those guys are going to keep it up throughout the week because we already know they're good players. Just really looking for the linebackers to continue their strong play as well and round out the front seven.
Yeah, and then two guys I wanted to shout out, two, again, defensive tackles from the national team. No, actually one from national, one from the American team, but from the national team, Jamari Caldwell from Oregon. I looked him up because I was watching the one-on-ones and I was like, this defensive tackle is playing really well out here. Like, he's looking really good. He's like 6'1", 340, like thick, strong player, shorter, like stout player. But he actually moved pretty well in what I saw from the one-on-one drills on the video I was watching. And it was a guy I had to write down afterwards. I was like, I got to go and watch his film after this because
that's the best though.
Look, the Colts need a two-gap. I really think because this scheme is transitioning more to a two-gapping type of role with the defensive tackles, like it's a more active role in the run game for the defensive line. Like instead of just one gap shooting up the field, you are actually controlling blocks and trying to keep your linebackers clean. That's really what happens in this Lou Anarumo system. So I think behind Grover and DeForest Buckner, they need more of those like 340, 330 pound guys. No more Taven Bryans who are 280. No more, even Raekwon Davis. I know he's a big dude, but he's a one-gapping type guy. He's an explosive upfield one-gapper who doesn't really hold blocks. So a guy like Jamari Caldwell, 6'1", 340, strong at the point of attack and hold up his own, I think he could be a fantastic third defensive tackle, especially if he's going like day 3. Like get him in here, maybe get him down to like 340, 325, and let's go. Like I think he'd be a really good fit. And then on the higher end from the American team, Deon Walker from Kentucky. I don't think this is realistic for the Colts because he's going to, from what I saw at least, maybe he just had a good day of practice. But from what I saw, again, I haven't been watching too many mock drafts yet, but he looked like a top 50 pick from what I was watching. Like
he'll probably go second round, I'm sure, if not the end of the first.
I looked at his measurables. He was like 6'7", 340 or 350 or something, and he looked every bit of it in every single thing I saw out there. I mean, there was a clip that was going viral of him in one of the pads where he knocked over one of the coaches with just his hands, like real quick. There was a handful of reps in 11 on 11, where he was driving back centers into the ball carriers. One-on-ones, he was winning with just his power alone. I mean, if the mock drafts don't have him top 50, I'd be shocked if they don't after the end of this week, because day one, it looked like the Deon Walker show. Again, I'm scouting offensive linemen for the draft guide this year, so that's my biggest focus right now, as always. But Deon Walker's hurting my ability to draft offensive line, or to scout offensive linemen in this event, because he is just bulldozing everybody. So if this is what he looks like on film for Kentucky, I mean, he's got to be going top 50. He looked awesome today.
Yeah, give me an interior defensive lineman this year to rotate with Buck and Grover, because those guys are both 30 plus, not going to be here forever. If a rebuild is around the corner in a year or so, you're probably getting rid of older, more expensive players. Get ahead of the problem now. Get a stud defensive tackle in here. Again, that's why I said I wouldn't even hate it in the first round. They have bigger needs, but I wouldn't hate it depending on who it is.
Well, here's like, if they can fill the holes in free agency with at least playable players, like I'm not saying it needs to be Javon Holland and Travarius Ward and all these top free agents, but if you can get in a handful of starting caliber or starting experience corners, a handful of safeties that know what they're doing, you can get in a tight end who can at least catch the football. You get in backup offensive linemen that can plug gaps, then you could be sitting there in round 2 with Walker on the board. And it's like, look, this is a 6'7", 350-pound guy who, I mean, if he even runs around 5 seconds in the 40, like we're talking like super athlete at this point, who has backed it up on, I'm presuming, film and Senior Bowl. Shoot, take him, take the best player that's there. So it really comes down to what they do in free agency and what holes they have in that time of the draft. But again, Deon Walker, holy crap, that was a fun bit of film out there, and I'm excited to watch him on his actual film in college, because that got me excited watching today.
Yeah, so guys, if there's anyone in particular you either want me to try and talk to or keep a specific eye out for tomorrow, definitely let us know in the comments and I'll do my best. Practices start at 9:30 Central tomorrow, so 10:30 Eastern showtime. So yeah, tomorrow morning I will be out there again, and then they'll get wrapped up on Thursday.
All right, so you guys got, 16 hours to throw in all of the people that you want Jake to watch tomorrow, so make sure you're letting us know in the comment section, or you can reach out to Jake on Twitter/X, whatever the heck it's called, or any of these other social media platforms that we have, which includes TikTok, Instagram, and obviously here on YouTube in our comment section. We also want to thank you guys for making Locked On Colts your first listen today and every day. Next, go find Locked On NFL. First, the Madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso, and then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. And you guys want to become a Locked On Colts insider and chat with us directly and get that insider scoop, follow the link in our show notes. If you guys follow that link, you can even send a text directly to Jake that says, hey, go talk to this player, go watch this player. He grew up on some farm near me, and I'm excited to see what he's doing down there. Send that to Jake as well through our insider program. And if you guys don't already, make sure you're following at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks2, all on Twitter. Again, we're also on TikTok and Instagram. And subscribe to us on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcasts. We love your guys' ratings, reviews, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow afternoon.